But long term, what we want to do is make it so that a Bitcoin can come to Cardano and spend Bitcoin transaction fees and participate in Cardano DeFi. So you can use our dexes and you can collateralize JED and all the things that we have in Cardano DeFi. It's able to use. And from the Bitcoin user's perspective, it's like an extension of the Bitcoin network. So they don't really feel like they've left it, even though it's wrapped Bitcoin on Cardano. And then they can go back to Bitcoin anytime that they want. And that's a trustless interaction. And
It's not fucking wrapped. Like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Hold on. I'm going to tell you something. Gold Rush has been drinking, so don't mind him,
Yeah,
Charles. He's been drinking all night.
No, the fucking Bitcoin is not fucking wrapped. It's a Z.
Hold on. Look, I said you can go over here and hang out with us as long as you're respectful, but if you're not going to be respectful of my space, I'm not going to have you on here. So that's it. You can't respect my space. That's it. You're off. Let me go ahead and mute everybody. Sorry, go ahead, Charles. I'll let you keep going.
Okay, so Bitcoin, when it comes to Cardano, it has to be represented as an asset, and it's represented as a Cardano native asset. So you can call it whatever you want, but it's a CNA on Cardano. That's how Bitcoin gets represented on Cardano. It's the whole concept of a hybrid application. You need a marker to represent that for accounting purposes. So in Ethereum, we call that a wrapped asset, but it could be whatever you want to call it, but it's a CNA that represents Bitcoin. And it's trustless in that you don't have to trust a middleman to move that from one side to the other side. You can do that yourself. So you burn the CNA and then you're able to unlock it on the other side. But that's how a bridge works. You have a locking and an unlocking mechanism. And when you lock it, you mint it on another system. And when you unlock it, you do that. But you need something to represent the Bitcoin on the Cardano side. And there's a one-to-one correspondence between those two. And there's different trust models about how things unlock. What makes Boss exciting is that the trust model involves a zero knowledge structure. And so hypothetically, it should be without a middleman and without trusted curation or a multi-sig. So that's what we're verifying right now going through the cryptography, because it's a relatively new construction and the white paper doesn't have enough detail in it to have certainty. So we're actually going through that entire construction, understanding what are all the trade-offs and exactly how these things can be used. But the next step is hybrid applications, where you basically can live on the Bitcoin network, query things on the Cardano network, pay transaction fees in Bitcoin. And then that basically is like a hybrid application where it has a Bitcoin component, a Cardano component, and you probably use hosting infrastructure like Maestro, for example, to facilitate that. That's kind of the triangle there. But how would you pay that transaction fee in Bitcoin? Well, either at atomic cross-chain swap, or you could pay it using a Cardano native asset that represents the Bitcoin, which has a path back to Bitcoin to redeem it on the Bitcoin network. These are kind of your options that you have. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. You have me a hybrid, and you see, for a long time, Charles, I know a lot of people, myself included, we've been kind of wanting some liquidity to come into the ecosystem. And I think that this bridge with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is obviously the number one cryptocurrency in the world, and that equally is going to be brought into the Cardano ecosystem. You did say something like around next year or something is going to really ramp up, and Bitcoin is currently about to hit its new all-time high, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting stuff, and 2025 when the real bull market truly happens, there's going to be so much going on, and I genuinely feel you can tell. I've been dabbling in multiple different ecosystems, different blockchains, and you can tell the difference in volume compared to the other ecosystem of the blockchain that Cardano already has that volume. I can see it and I can definitely feel it. So it's truly there. It's really, you should be really happy and proud of yourself, Charles. You really should.
Well, we're going to have to do a lot of work. There's an enormous amount of stuff that has to get done quickly. For example, we have to stand up Aiken training for Bitcoin developers so that they understand how to write applications in Bitcoin. And there's a lot of partnerships I think we can bring to bear to accelerate that. But we have a 2-week Aiken training class that we developed at UTN down in Argentina. And I think that class is just perfect for people that really want to understand how to do things. And then also we just need to make sure Maestro is ready for these hybrid app concepts, so it's easy to deploy infrastructure on both sides. And again, we have to understand the limitations of BOSS. And then Babel fees does need to be integrated in Cardano. My hope is that we can fast track that and get it done, so that that guarantees you can pay your transaction fees in Bitcoin in a seamless experience. So we wrote SIP 118 for that. It's the nested transactions SIP, and it's mostly ledger work. There's a little bit of Plutus work, but mostly it's just ledger work. But it does require a new version of Plutus v4. So it has to be implemented with a hard fork. So there's a lot that's here, but it's not exclusively just for Bitcoin, but it's also for all the midnight stuff that's coming, and it's for all the cross-chain stuff that's coming, because Bitcoin is not like magic in that we have to do all this stuff just for it. This is reusable infrastructure for pretty much all the major cryptocurrencies, Solana, Ethereum, and so forth. But Bitcoin in particular is very special to us because it has a UTXO programming model. So all your devs in that world come from the same programming model as Cardano, but they're deeply frustrated with the limited semantical expression of what you can do in Bitcoin. And it takes a really, really long time to write anything of use. And it's like writing assembly code with Bitcoin script. It's really hard to be a Bitcoin developer. Whereas when they come Cardano, they think in the same way with UTXO, but it's really easy to do things now that we have a pretty good dev experience. So a lot of Aiken stuff to work on. And the Aiken project in particular is growing very quickly. We have 2 full-time developers at IO that are working at Aiken. And it would be nice to see some more resources come their way, and just make sure that they're ready for the tsunami wave of things. And I think we could be the dominant development platform for Bitcoin applications. And what's nice is if you can pay transaction fees in Bitcoin, well, they don't really consider it to be a separate network, and they don't realize that under the hood they're creating demand for ADA through the whole Babel fees construction. Every transaction requires ADA under the hood. So it's almost like tourists coming to your country, and they spend dollars, but you have your native currency and you're using your credit card. So you don't really feel like you're not spending dollars, but under the hood, you're actually doing a currency conversion, which creates more demand for that local currency, and it dollarizes the economy a little bit. This is the kind of stuff that really helps small nations. And man, it's really going to help Cardano, having all these Bitcoin tourists float around getting yield from Cardano applications. It's going to help our TVL, and it's going to help our transaction volume and all these other things. And I think there's a very natural connection between Bitcoin and Cardano in particular. It's very weird, Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's a totally different accounting model, different network model, whereas Cardano is kind of the spiritual successor to Bitcoin in many ways. And so there's a lot of extensions of concepts that developers will be very comfortable with. So I think we're going to fare very well in 2025.